Please join me in welcoming Esri's co-founder and president, Jack Dangermond.
Our whole purpose, our core purpose, is to keep the pulse of the planet, take the measurements, collect the data that characterize this Earth we live on.
Maps and GIS are getting better. They're becoming richer and smarter and more powerful.
We collected years of data that we'd poured our heart and soul into, and now for the first time made it available in one seamless system.
What's amazing about the GIS platform is not just all the data that it can aggregate, but its ability to display that.
The people on the ground, they need the tools so that problems can be solved.
You're looking at what's happening now, not what happened 12 hours ago.
And this is the new way of governing. Not about excuses, not about moving left or moving right. It's about moving forward. It's about getting things done.
Within seconds, within minutes, we can have consensus on what it takes to control and finish this disease. That shows the power of GIS.
We can still save the biodiversity. We can still help the local people to keep their culture, keep their existence, and we can still make this place a better world.
We're going to have to make some really tough decisions on this planet. And it would be so much better if those decisions could be based on scientific knowledge.
Every action we do has an impact on the world around us, and we have a choice as to what sort of impact we want to make.
The concept of GIS brings us closer to an age in which it is possible to adjust our philosophies and our lives to existence on this planet as it really is. First, we must get on with the mapping of the world.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Sally, for that very nice introduction, and also for all of the NACo executives for inviting me to share a little bit about my life with you. The voices that you heard in this video are quite a group. They're distinguished scientists and leaders in government and in the academy. And I hope what you heard in their voices was some sense of how they think about geographic knowledge and science and how it will integrate into creating a better future for our planet. As I said before, I'm thrilled to be able to talk with you. Many of you are my users, so thank you very much, by the way. GIS is on the forefront in so many counties and enabling so much good work to be done there. The passion that those people shared in that video, I got a sense of when I was just a kid in school. About 50 years ago at Harvard, my wife and I were working in a laboratory that was inventing some of the basic concepts of putting geography in the computer and then being able to visualize it and analyze it and do all the applications that many of you know about already. When we graduated from school, we did, I guess you would call it, we did a startup. We were just kids, we didn't quite know what we were doing, but we began our work with about $1,100 and a loan from my mother for about $5,000. I don't advise that to anybody. That's supposed to be a joke, but you guys are not laughing. And very gradually, we kept ownership of our company and grew it to be what it is today. And it is a pretty good story. I like to share the story once in a while with people because it gives some sense of what American business can be. It can grow from nothing with people's imagination into advanced technology that makes a difference. And that is still what we are attempting and working on today, every day. I'm going to show you some slides, which are not showing up on my screen, but maybe we'll make it happen. I'm supposed to be a tech guy, so you'd think that I would be able to do this. So let me see. I'm in snooze mode. So while I demo my laptop, and there you go. First, I'd just like to assert to you that GIS, this technology of putting data about geography in the computer, is creating a smarter world already. And so at the beginning of this talk, I thought I would share some of the work that's going on, some of it in your counties. GIS is affecting the whole process of planning and economic development, from green infrastructure planning to urban design to regional planning, and making a huge difference in terms of understanding before acting. I like that phrase. Understanding precedes action. And certainly there's no area other than planning where that really is important. We create with geographic knowledge understanding, and then can act in a more sensible and smarter way. GIS is being used to manage land information, the cadastral records, parcels, the foundation for the civil society, and not just the record keeping, but the exploitation of those records for things like understanding distribution of tax assessment. GIS is being used in transportation planning, and here are some examples showing how it's being applied in transit planning. And down in the lower left, some of my favorite slides are UPS and the post office are literally saving hundreds of millions of dollars by routing their trucks in a more efficient way. But my favorite slide is this one right in the center, the real-time parking availability. I wish I'd had that. The people from Long Beach are not here, but this morning in getting here, I had a hell of a time. GIS is being used in energy development, not only traditional oil and gas, but in the new renewables, finding the right location for solar collectors on buildings and wind farms, and also helping us understand patterns of things like drought and be more responsive with forest restoration projects in agriculture. These examples show how GIS is being used in the engineering process, engineering record keeping, and developing smart networks. And my favorite here is the integration of natural drainage networks with culverts. And some of you are challenged with that very issue. In these important subjects like human health, education, and demographics, GIS is being used to tell stories like issues such as income equality or vulnerable populations, policy sorts of maps and stories. It's also being used to tell stories about disparity in school access. And with NACo, these maps are being displayed showing OPID or also Zika risk in our various geographies in the United States. In the public safety arena, GIS is helping our communities be safer by showing patterns of crime, both in time and space, in understanding issues dealing with things like officer-involved shootings, or picking the right location for fire stations or other public services. These examples show your work, some of your colleagues' work, in preparing for and responding to natural disasters, addressing vulnerable populations, things like hurricanes or typhoons or floods or even hail distributed across the country. GIS is also a kind of language which is opening up our communities, opening up our counties to share information, not only providing open data, but also open stories like story maps, so people can understand the distribution of public issues like school access or environmental issues that are, and by the way, to put this in scale, today probably 50 million maps will be viewed of this type. It's becoming a kind of language. About 1 billion maps will be looked at off of these kind of GIS observational things today, and story maps in the, well, it's just trending. Okay, it's not Facebook, but you get the idea of geographic storytelling. Well, I wanted to share these examples so that those of you not so familiar with GIS could sort of begin to think, wow, this is interesting technology, and it's happening in each of the different departments in virtually every county in the United States. GIS is not only supporting the mission areas like health or public safety, but it's also doing something quite interesting. And this is why, as a kid, I really got interested, is that geography is a platform for bringing things together. It's kind of an integrative platform. It allows us to integrate all of the ologies, but also all of the different departments, like the geology and the climatology and the sociology. We can layer these things together and see the whole. In county government, the same sort of issues of segmentation or stovepiping occurs. We have the health department and the planning department and the cadastre and policing. But through geography, we can actually begin to mash up or overlay this information and see it as a whole. And this is changing, ladies and gentlemen, the very nature of how we see our planet and how we see our organizations. I'd like to shift gears for a minute and share with you where I think this is going. Creating a smarter planet, enabling a smarter world. So you and I are living in an interesting time because everything is becoming digital. Even though many of you say, well, I'm not technical, I'm not in that space. At the same time, underneath your feet, virtually we are learning how to measure everything that moves and changes and wire it up into networks and make that information available. The whole so-called big revolution that's occurring with big data is being fed by these networks that cover all of geography. And in that capacity, this little mapping and GIS technology is becoming a kind of language, a language that's essential for managing in the digital environment. It's also a language which is kind of a fundamental language. It's not English or Spanish or French or whatever. It's a visual language that helps us look at and see and instantly understand things that we couldn't understand with all the written words or mathematical languages. It also is a platform for helping us manage our future, bringing all the ologies or the departments together so we can understand things and better act. And this is a language for everybody. It touches everybody. Today, if you look at this morning's LA Times or yesterday's LA Times or the New York Times or the Wall Street, our world obviously is increasingly challenged. And you as elected officials perhaps know this better than anyone because you're hearing it from all directions. The evidence for me is very clear that the arrows are going in the wrong direction, and it's not sustainable. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, it is just clearly, to me, living on the planet for 70 years, this isn't going to work out. In order to make it work out, we're going to require all of us to take our best thinking, our best technologies, our best information, our best creative work, our best political collaboration. This is where you come in. To deal with these issues of loss of nature and climate change and social conflict. And this is a big game. And it's a really big game. And it isn't going to be solved by stovepiping or operating in our own little fiefdoms or our own little balls of clay. So that was what I realized actually in the 1960s. That was the time when Silent Spring came out. The environmental movement was birthed. And me and my wife were sitting there at Harvard entering key punch cards, and we realized, oh my God, geography, the science of our world, is the platform for understanding and acting. That's what got us motivated. And it's that passion that still is accelerating in your organizations and organizations around the world. This GIS provides a framework and a process for taking all the data and geoizing it, bringing it together, integrating it, and then visualizing it, telling stories, informing people about change in the environment or in performance. Is the north part of town doing better than the south part of town with respect to crime, water, building permits issues, economic development, inequality, whatever. the subject. It also is a framework for analyzing relationships. This is what science is all about. By overlaying maps and doing computational stuff, I can create understanding. Like breast cancer is related to a certain kind of pollution up in Long Island. I can computationally create understanding that I couldn't do in normal ways. And that very same platform of maps I can use for planning and decision making and ultimately taking it to action. So this is like a cycle to me. Like I'm measuring science, analysis, and then taking it into action. Understanding precedes action. So this language is not a little plaything. And while your counties are often using it in different departments to save money and save time and be better off, the holistic aspect of this is something that I particularly think you as elected officials need to know and understand, because it's right there to be captured and used. I'd like to now shift gears for a second and talk about what's happening with the fundamental technology, because it's exciting to me. I mean, in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this. GIS is getting smarter. It's integrating all sorts of technologies, like bigger, faster machines, big data, advanced modeling, better visualization, time-space information, and it's being made available on any device. You know, any device, anywhere, anytime, that sort of thing. And it's helping your organizations and can help your organizations, but it has to be visioned properly. What do we mean by smarter? First, the whole concept of the Internet of Things means that we can take dynamic, changing information. A simple analogy is traffic, but also water pollution or air pollution or noise or where people are. We can bring them in and spatialize them in real time. That's already happening in places like FEMA headquarters, where we see and track storms and we see where there's vulnerable populations, or in Seattle here, crime patterns, reading in real-time information, visualizing it, making it available to everybody else. So the world is becoming real-time in digital space. A smart GIS also means connecting to everybody. Almost all of you here have one of these smartphones. You connect in, and the language of maps becomes a common language for creating a relationship between me as an individual and my organization. Here's where I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm connected. Systems of engagement is what it's called in the industry. And these apps are the language that allow that to occur. Field apps, so that my field workers can connect with my office workers and optimize data collection and analytics and give field workers direction. Is this interesting to you? Okay, so I'm just checking. This smart GIS also embeds advanced analytics and visualization. This means that I can take all of these layers of data and I can analyze the relationships and make projections and predictions with them. This is called systems of insights. I can be insightful. I can see this relationship between this and that, and as a result, better act or respond. GIS is transforming understanding through this analytic environment with new tools for visually interacting with the data, taking a spreadsheet, seeing it spatially, analyzing relationships of this spreadsheet and that spreadsheet, and doing advanced models, predicting the weather, or predicting storm runoff, or predicting epidemics, those sorts of things. So I might say smart GIS brings all of it together. It brings the data out of systems of record like parcel data, with systems of record like the pipes, where are they, and connects them with these systems of engagements in organizations, and connects them with systems of insight, these three pillars. You follow me on this notion? I mean, normally in IT you have this department, which is the system of record keeping, this department, which is the system of insight creation, sometimes called business intelligence. This is the department of social media. What GIS is beginning to emerge as is a common platform that brings these together and allows us to help organizations understand across the organization, not just one department, not just one mission. Some of these apps are already showing up. These are 3 that I'll share with you. The one on the left is from USGS. It's a smart app that tells me when an earthquake happened maybe an hour away. It gives me 30 seconds or 60 seconds to get under the table or run outdoors because it's wired into the network. The one in the center is particularly fascinating to me. This is done by NOAA. So most of you know the Weather Service. They predict out 5 days or 10 days or 15 days when there's a certain amount of rain going to happen. So this is a little bit more than that. It allows me to drop the rain on the topography and run the rain through the topography. Tells me how much rain's going to happen downstream, down the Mississippi, when it's going to happen 15 days out, so I can get people out of there early. This is really going to change the whole world of emergency response. And another example is community engagement apps, like the little dots on there are social media. I'm saying what I see and getting a pulse of the community. Or I put out a proposal like, here's a proposal for a new development. What do you want to say about it? Okay, I'll social media this and give a new kind of sensing from people back to the administrators, you. Finally, smart GIS is allowing us to revolutionize how we plan and design our future. This means bringing all the different layers together and allow us to design, do geodesign is what we call it, or urban planning design. I bring all the physical and social factors together and be able to design and quickly look at different impacts of those designs. GIS is also getting smarter with respect to community engagement. This means not only open data, but going beyond that, an open GIS for community participation. It means that citizens and NGOs can actually have access to those maps, that counties can come out with initiatives like homeless initiatives and involve the whole bloody community in solving this problem. The city of Los Angeles, I hate to bring up a city as opposed to a county, but the city of Los Angeles, under Eric Garcetti's leadership, is already implementing this kind of a pattern. And it's amazing. His vision was, I want to use all of the databases that are already in the city and make them available for citizens and NGOs and schools and to be able to use and collectively bring this information together. This is another step in the evolution of GIS, a community GIS pattern. So if we look through time, the original GIS concepts was to bring different departments or different sectors together. And GIS is quite good at that. More recently, it has involved organizational GIS. I talked about that earlier. Shared common knowledge. The next step is to get organizations participating and sharing, serving each other. This idea first became very clear to me a couple of months ago when I visited the city of Los Angeles. A young civil engineer working in the Public Works Department was editing some water lines, and he had a parcel map behind him on the screen. And I said, where's that parcel map coming from? He says, oh, that's coming from the county of Los Angeles, directly as a web map. So the hundreds of updates on the parcel map that's made every day in the county is directly served into the city. It's like dial tone. So where is this going? This idea that we can serve each other, not just one department serving another department, but one agency serving another agency. In the next dozen years, this is going to evolve to be what I like to call a nervous system for our country, filled with various kinds of services. And let me conclude with this. My sense is that humans have never been more capable of sharing and applying geographic knowledge. And my feeling is that that knowledge is the foundation. It's one of the basis points for being able to create a better future. So I have high hopes for the future, actually. But it isn't going to be just a technology thing. That isn't going to be enough. My sense is now is the time to act, and you are the audience to really embrace this notion. Transforming your organizations to understand those bloody issues that are in the newspaper every day and address them and use good science as a foundation for it. Learn about this stuff. Get your people to start collaborating across the departments and between different sorts of organizations, sharing, collaborating, and designing a plan for our common future. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this chance, and I'll be visiting with some of you later. Thank you.